that ensure freedom and liberty. And that is what we are here to defend and what we do in our daily work. We need to make sure that a wide range of information and viewpoints is available to all. It is bedrock to democracy. One of the most alarming aspects, as Linda's already said so eloquently, is how much these bans are targeting those folks who can least be targeted, who are marginalized already, particularly LGBTQ+ Americans and people of colors. In the larger context, these efforts explicitly ban or even criminalize the teaching of such topics as race, gender, and identities of LGBTQ people. They are targeted at eliminating these perspectives, these voices, and we know from history, and I say this as a son of descendants of German Jews who fled Nazi Germany and someone who worked and lived in South Africa in the 1980s, that those kinds of efforts follow shortly with efforts to eliminate these people fully. We cannot see this proceed, and we are here to fight against it. We need to ensure that these folks see themselves in our country's literature and culture. And we all need to be able to read these books so that we can learn about others and about ourselves and develop the empathy that is, again, core to democracy. We have to make sure that we do not deprive everyone of the opportunity to learn and empathize. And this goes against everything that libraries stand for. In October 2023, during Banned Books Week, we called Books for All and launched a national initiative where we provide regular banned book clubs and a writing contest and offer copies online and in print, but online to anyone in the country, especially those in the states that have seen the lead of these book bannings. We offer bi-monthly access through the book clubs to titles that have included Jason Reynolds, who we'll hear from shortly, and Brendan Kiely in their book, All American Boys. We are continuing with this, again, bi-monthly, because we need to ensure the freedom to read, to learn, and to empathize. In addition to the book clubs, we're having a prize-winning, our prize offering competition for essays, the finalist of which, the winner of which will be published in Teen Vogue and so many others in our own NYPL's Teen Voice magazine. The Books for All campaign, again, provides downloadable not only the books, but also toolkits that provide flyers, images, hashtags, campaign slogans, everything that everyone needs across the country to mobilize against these book bans. We're proud to have partnered with the American Library Association, and you'll hear from them again shortly, to make sure that this is an effort not just for New Yorkers so that we can join in the efforts, but for all Americans. We've also partnered with the 826 National, a national writing organization, to spread the word about our writing contest. All of these efforts are part of a long-standing tradition that ensure that the titles and perspectives of marginalized communities, of all communities, are available. When the Black Lives Matter protest exploded in the summer of 2020, we expanded our digital collections on Black heritage, drawing on the great collections of the Schomburg in Harlem. We saw within just weeks that reading list had 35,000 checkouts. In addition, we've always observed Pride, Women's History, and Black History Month. Our commitments to the freedom to read are ongoing, proudly displayed in banners on our iconic building at 42nd and 5th, proclaiming the stand against book banning. And while we look forward to continuing our essential work in this campaign, the city's libraries cannot escape, at the same time, the impact of record-high potential cuts. The fiscal year, we see cuts in the neighborhood of $58.3 million, a devastating level of cuts if implemented. Already, the 5% mid-year peg to libraries' current budgets, amounting to $23.6 million, have seen us forced to reduce library programs and materials, the elimination of Sunday services at all the branches that we're offering it. The $58.3 million cuts, we need to see those restored for FY25. With the current cuts to library collections already, NYPL will purchase 20,000 fewer ebooks, 6,000 fewer downloadable audiobooks, 40,000 fewer books in English, and 6,000 fewer world language books, so essential to our immigrant communities and our asylum seekers, to all the descendants of immigrants, as almost all of us are here in New York. I want to close my testimony with a popular refrain: libraries are for everyone. They are the most visited, the most trusted, the most essential civic institution in this town and throughout this country, and that means we need to stand up, as we are, as you are, at this moment of challenge. We are grateful to the Council for its partnership over these years. We thank you again for the opportunity to testify and look forward to ongoing discussions and, even more importantly, our ongoing work.
Thank you.
Chair Rivera, it's a pleasure to see you, and congratulations on your appointment. Member Osei, thank you for your leadership as well. It's a pleasure to see Council Member Ung here, and we have talked and participated in our Lunar New Year parades together. And it's always a pleasure, and other members of the Council. My name is Dennis Walcott, and I have the honor of being the president of the Queens Public Library. And I want to do a summary of the summary, quite frankly, since you've already heard Linda and Tony, and I really do applaud both the Brooklyn Public Library and the New York Public Library for all of their outstanding work around this important topic. And my summary of the summary, especially since you have my testimony, will just touch on a couple of things, because like my fellow colleagues in library systems, we participated in Banned Book Week and also stood with the mayor as far as denouncing what has taken place throughout the country, and we will continue to do that. And I just want to share a couple of things with you, because I vividly remember standing outside of Jackson Heights Library with helicopters flying overhead, with police barricades erected in the street, me in the middle of the street between people pro-library and what we were doing inside, and those who were opposed to what was going on inside our Jackson Library. And I never ever want to see a repeat of that again in New York City or throughout the country. People trying to stop the freedom of expression, plain and simple. Trying to stop the quiet and the beauty of what was taking place in the library. And as a result of Linda, Tony, Brooklyn, and New York Public Library, and what we're doing at the Queens Public Library, our goal is working with you to make sure we, one, raise this issue, but two, making sure we defeat the issue, not just here, but as Linda is doing and others are doing throughout the country as well. And one of the things that we're doing at Queens is making sure, one, we articulate the issue, but also we do a lot around publicizing and putting policies in place. Just recently, our board of directors, our board of trustees, really updated our policy around banned books, and we'll be making sure that it's widely distributed, making sure people have a clear understanding of what's going on. We've held forums, we've held book talks. Just recently, we had a great book talk at our South Jamaica Library to talk about the issues that are important to our communities. In addition to that, we've had literary Thursdays throughout the system, talking about issues of importance, but also making sure we expose our communities to a wide array of books that are available to them, so that way they're all books for all people, and we have that ability to do that. System-wide, we have more than 5.6 million books and materials representing over 30 languages throughout the Queens Public Library system. This past fiscal year, we circulated 7.7 million physical and digital materials, and which represents a 15% increase. Last month, the library revised, as I indicated, our collection development policy to reinforce our opposition to censorship attempts and our goal to offer the widest diversity of views and expressions. The policy also made clear that the library's decision to acquire and remove materials from our collections will not be determined by partisan or doctrinal points of view. We believe in making sure books are available for all. QPL, the Queens Public Library, is a home to research collections, like my colleagues as well, that uplift and amplify the voices that have been historically suppressed. At our Langston Hughes Community Library and Cultural Center, our Black Heritage Reference Collection is a testament to the richness and the depth of Black history, covering a wide range of subjects, including African history, slavery, critical race theory, African American art, and much, much more. This collection is one of the largest circulating collections of materials of the Black experience in New York State and throughout the country. Writings by prominent figures such as Malcolm X, Barack Obama. Our Central Library's Carter G. Woodson Reference Collection has more than 4,000 reference materials covering various aspects of African American culture and life, and papers on the most influential Black leaders, including Martin Luther King Jr., Booker T. Washington, and others. As you indicated in your introduction, we have our journal collection that really captures Black History Month and people noting the importance of every day throughout the month and beyond, and we are very proud of that as well. As many of the amazing programs and book discussions that we've had, as I indicated at our South Jamaica Library, we just had the acclaimed author Charmaine Wilkerson on her first novel, Black Cake, which is now an Oprah Winfrey produced series of the same name on Hulu. The library was jam-packed with people who stayed and the author who stayed for over 4 hours really participating with the audience. We are here to work with you, Chair, and the members of the council to make sure that we articulate this issue and we make sure that we're out front in talking how we too really will focus on addressing the issue, not just in New York City, but throughout the country as well. I was distracted by my council member who walked in, so I would be remiss and not be able to return home if I didn't say hello to council member Tasha Williams. It's a pleasure to see you, and I'll see you at the Cambria Heights Library at some time in the very near future. So as I close, I just want to say again, thank you for your leadership, Chair. Thank you for your leadership, members of the council, but most importantly, we at the Queens Public Library, along with Brooklyn and New York, are here for you to make sure we serve the public at large. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate so much of what you said. I think we're all so very troubled at the direction that this fight is going. And for those, as I mentioned, we're very fortunate to live here in New York City, but do not think that this is too far from our doorstep. It's not just a town an hour north of Albany seeing their library closed when they try to bring in Drag Story Hour. It's here in Jackson Heights. It's bomb threats to libraries in Brooklyn. It's all very, very serious. And so you've heard a little bit about what our library systems are doing. So I just want to ask the panel, I also want to mention we've been joined by council members Hudson, Hanif, and Williams. Do you believe that New Yorkers are sufficiently aware of the threat that stems from banning books, considering that books are not being banned in the city's public libraries?
I'll take that. Thank you for the question. I think that inattention is to some extent responsible for what's going on, and when you live in New York City, you feel perhaps that it's not our problem. When we started the Books Unbanned program, really the thought was to be sure that students could get the material they wanted that they could no longer find on the shelves of their school or their public libraries. And certainly the program has achieved that, but we have also learned in the process that shining a light on the issue is equally important. That not everybody, of course, runs an institution or a library that can make a sweeping gesture to emphasize the problem and get people talking about it, but everybody can do something, even if it's a small gesture. And so we are encouraging everybody to participate in whatever way they can to make sure that this issue is at the forefront and that people are are being vocal about it. We don't believe, and maybe this is me and my rose-colored glasses, but I do not believe that the majority of Americans think that censorship is a good thing. But I do think that lack of attention is in part to blame for this.
It also, if I may, pick up on the subtle forms of censorship as well, because what we experience, and I imagine my colleagues experience as well, even though you may not have people saying, ban this book, when they come into a library and they may not be happy with the book, all of a sudden the placement of the book changes as well. So where you had it placed is no longer there. And we've experienced that, where people will actually physically remove a book and try to either put it on the side or do something with it so it's not visible. We have signage that deals with banned books to make sure people are aware about the issue itself. And people have literally gone and picked up the signs and torn them up. And those types of issues we face still in a New York City area, and we are very conscious of that. So I agree that it may not be as prevalent, but at the same time, there are the subtle and sometimes not so subtle forms, like helicopters flying overhead and full police details in the street, making sure that people are protected and able to go into the library to participate in the program.
Madam Chair, I'll just add, I think we've learned from history. When you feel safe because you live in a more open part of a country or in this great city, that can lead you down a path that allows this kind of inexplicable, unacceptable behavior to gain strength before you even realize it. It's why we are here, front and center, because we've seen this in history. Yes, book banning isn't happening in New York City. Thank goodness. Let's keep it that way. I remember when the mayor joined us for an event on book banning, he was looking at the books that were banned and just shaking his head in disbelief at these classics. Toni Morrison banned? It's just unthinkable. But these issues, the culture wars, come to us more directly. In particular, the drag story hours that we proudly offer. Not huge numbers, I wish it was more. 34 of those last year out of 8,500 book events for youngsters that brought orchestrated protests that almost made it impossible. Used by these folks claiming liberty under a banner of freedom to stop exactly that. We are resisting, we are continuing, and we must all do that together.
Hear, hear. When books are banned in other parts of the country, does it change how New York is able to access books at all? Whether it's digital copies or physical copies?
No.
Not yet.
Have you faced pressure locally to ban books or remove certain books from your bookshelves?
In Brooklyn, we have not. And in fact, on the rare occasion in Brooklyn when a book is challenged and there's a process, typically it's a 180-degree challenge from the ones that we're talking about today. It's a concern over a book maybe from the 1950s or the middle of the century that depicts people of color in a way that's no longer considered acceptable. And so it becomes a question about whether or not we're being racist ourselves unwittingly, not whether we are providing material that's too progressive.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we face is the request, as Tony indicated in his testimony, to buy more books. And I mean, our goal is to have as many books, as diverse a group of books as available for people to choose from. And then we have our policies in place where if someone wants to challenge a book, they have the right to do that. But we've received very few challenges, and we have not banned any books at all.
I also think it's interesting that even places like Florida school districts are revisiting their own policy as being too liberal, as removing some of the titles from their shelves, and who can make these recommendations. So clear it's gotten out of hand even in places where it started. Do you believe that New Yorkers are generally aware of the work you all have done in libraries to fight book banning nationwide? I mean, you all you just hit the surface of the initiatives and the programs that you're running, but do you think New Yorkers are aware?
I think there is a growing awareness, the publicity of this hearing, of your work, of drawing the attention of the city and the country to our efforts and to the efforts of banning that we are resisting is essential. There is always more work to do, sadly.
Any strategies you feel have been more effective than anything that we can help spread the word?
I think the raising of the issue, the open discussion around the issue, the more we can really indicate the types of books that other countries or other cities and locales want to ban is very helpful to make people think and say, really, this is going on? And as a result of that, I think it just brings added attention to the discussion. But any type of dialogue that we can have, and I think any type of programs, like the excellent programs that Brooklyn and New York are doing, and the things that we're doing, I think makes it more aware, makes people more aware of what's happening outside of New York City.
And I want to, you all mentioned your work with young people specifically, which I think is probably at the core here of our discussion. And how can we expect our young people and students to write or create when you're being taught to fear? I thought that was a very powerful statement. You all have done a lot of work with teens in your anti-banning initiatives, and you have also done a lot of work more focused on supporting teens generally with your teen centers and more. Why are teens especially important in your anti-banning efforts?
Teens and their literature are being targeted by those trying to close voices. That means we have to target and resist and make those options more available. Teens are at a moment of growth and of vulnerability. They need to be able to see themselves. They need to learn about each other. I'll put it simply, as an author said at a panel on this topic that I think we co-hosted with PEN America and The Atlantic. Teens are at this vulnerable place, and we need to make sure that their effort, that they are not foreclosed from learning. The fact that books are being banned says something about those trying to ban them seeing how powerful books are. Those folks are scared of that power and of teens, others and their own, learning and expanding their worlds. And that is the business we are in to ensure.
One of the beauties of libraries, and Linda and Tony talked about this, and we all know this, is that we are truly the only open democratic institution in the world where people can walk in the door. We don't ask you your background. We don't ask you for any ID. We don't ask you for anything. And with teenagers, we want teenagers to come in. We want to have material available for them to take a look at, to read, to discuss, to debate, to know how to engage. And having a variety of types of books allows that type of development and energy and intellectual discussion to take place. And that's who we are, and that's what we've done, and that's what we continue to do as a library system. We want more people to have library cards here in New York City, throughout the country. We want them to use those cards to take advantage of whether it's ebooks or those books that are on the shelves, and having that diversity to us is extremely important as far as how we increase the social awareness and involvement, the intellectual development of our teenagers as far as people who are different, people who have different ideas and thought processes. That's what we're about as a library.
I would just add that it's not an accident that teens are being targeted. It's of course because they're at the most impressionable moments of their lives, and they're at a time when they are searching to make sense of their own identity, their own place in the world. Long before this started, the three library systems were very focused on the notion of doing more with teenagers, because the sort of traditional cycle of library usage has always been to kind of lose teens when there are exciting, maybe not so healthy things out on the streets that are more interesting than coming to your local library. And so over the past 5 years, I would say, we've really stepped this up with technology and sort of trying to meet teens in places that they find engaging, recording studios, music, gaming, as a way to learn more about technology. And all of these things were in place when these book bans really started to proliferate. And the moment is important because teens have been put at the center of the battle, because these folks who are so fearful of what might be contained in these books and fearful of what understanding these stories can mean to this country, they are in fact putting teens at risk.
So tomorrow, we at the Queens Public Library will be celebrating our Sweet 16 party for our Far Rockaway Teen Library. And it's been in existence for 16 years. And it's the beauty of having teenagers being able to go to their own library, not just their own program, but their own library, to feel safe, to feel the comfort of being able to express themselves and trying to make sure that others understand how they're respecting themselves and respecting that ability for them to be teenagers. And that's what we're about with the teen centers, what the mayor did with the investment in teen centers and expanding our capacity to do that. Focusing on teenagers to us is really so key as far as the development of a future society and what it means. And I think all of us in a variety of different ways really thrive on that, because book banning is, as Tony and Linda indicated, really is going to the heart of cutting out that lifeline from our teenagers.
I mean, I will just say my own personal experience being a teenager. The first time I read The House on Mango Street, the first time I read Fahrenheit 451, The Bluest Eyes, Song of Solomon. These were all life-changing experiences. And I actually got them from my library, you know, Hamfish or...
We had Sandra Cisneros, I think just a week or two ago, come to the library. It's
Incredible.
the 40th anniversary of the publication of The House on Mango Street, and the crowds were as fierce and dense as they were back when the book came out. I think there was a line that took 2 hours for her to sign all the copies that people wanted signed. So the work is happening.
Amazing. All right, well, I'm just gonna, before I turn it over to my colleagues, because I see they have questions, of course, I want to ask the multi-million-dollar question. How do you anticipate that city budget cuts in the immediate future will affect your ability to continue this fight? What will the public be losing on this front as a result of any cuts?
This may sound somewhat inflamed, but I believe that by cutting the budget, we are doing to New Yorkers exactly what some of these right-wing groups are doing to communities across the country. It's not for the same reason. We're not being targeted for the material that we're providing, but by forcing us to be in a position where we need to reduce the number of books that we are able to buy in a given year, we essentially are depriving teens and everybody else of the material that they need to grow and to learn.
Let me just add, if the libraries are closed, then having the books in the library available doesn't work. All the education programs that we have worked with you and with the administration to build in record numbers that meet so many needs, we can't offer those programs if the libraries are closed. Even if they're closed because of the lack of capital investments so that we have to close them for repairs. We are so proud, as Linda and Dennis have talked about, of our teen centers so that we can really welcome the teens to their own spaces and the things that they are looking for and welcome them into our other programs and to more reading. We've had plans where close to 20 of those open in our most needy neighborhoods. We are now seeing the need to not open those because of the budget cuts or to have them closed. That is tragic for everyone involved.
So already we're suffering as a result of the cuts. I mean, we're not open on Sunday. There's only one, maybe two, but one that's open on Sunday. I mean, I take a look at Flushing Library, which has tremendous volume of people going into the library. Those people are not going in on Sunday because the library is not open on Sunday. They don't have access to the book. The new teen center that we put in place there, or the upgraded teen center that we put there, not available at all. I mean, so that's one direct impact. Already with us, as a result of the November PEG, That's still in effect. That will carry over to the next fiscal year. We've already cut back on our collections already, and we had to absorb a cut and deal with the collections, and that means fewer books that we're buying, fewer e-books that are available, not just for teenagers, for the public at large. And then when you combine the three of us and the resources that are taken away as a result of the cuts and the inability of having hours open or books and materials available or programs, because we're talking about banned books, but it's also really impacting banned programs that are not available as a result of the library doors not being open anymore at a particular time. And with the cuts carrying forward, that will happen even more so. And that impacts not just the teenagers, but the adults, the most vulnerable, our immigrant population. And we have to address that. And the only way to address that is the restoration of money, plain and simple. It's money that's worthwhile long-term investment in the future of New York City, plain and simple. And it's not about, a fight here, a fight there. It's really looking at the vision of New York City. What does it mean for the population at large? I know both with Linda and Tony, with the Brooklyn system, the New York system, definitely with the Queens system, we see the new immigrants coming through our door on a regular basis. They're lining up in front of Central and our other libraries before we open. Those doors will not be able to open as frequently. So even if we keep the days of the week same, we may have to shrink hours as a result of the budget cut. And each of us may handle it differently, but still it means fewer hours, fewer days available for the people most in need and people who want to take advantage of the books, the materials, programs, and services that we provide.
Thank you. Well, with that, I will turn it over to my colleagues. Council members, it will be Osei, Hudson, Hanif, and then Williams.
Good afternoon. This topic hits close to home. In our Broward branch, there were a couple protests against Drag Queen Story Hour related to the topics that we're discussing today. We've heard about many of the programs that you provide and pushing back against the relative fascism that we're seeing in this country, but what worth are those programs if the funding for those programs don't exist, right? So I want to ask for each of the three systems, how much does it relatively cost to run and operate the programs that you are operating in response to the book bans that we're seeing in this country?
The work that we're doing on Books Unbanned, which is providing service to people across the country, is being done 100% with private money. We're doing it very deliberately because we understand that we're providing service outside of New York City. And so it's not affecting the city budget at all.
Okay.
Can I just add that that is true, all private funds, including anonymous ones, people rallying to us to help us raise the national profile around this issue. In addition, we've seen publishers step up and give us books for free to lend electronically to anyone in the country, books that have been banned that we can offer online when localities have blocked them physically.
And how will the proposed, and I know you touched on this in the last answer, but the $20.3 million in cuts in the fiscal year 2025 budget impact the three systems' abilities, not necessarily to implement these programs, but just to rehash in terms of the Sunday closures and operating hours if these cuts do come into fruition in the next fiscal year? How will that impact these programs as well as future hours for the three systems?
Yeah. As has been said, the issue with libraries is there are very few levers for us to pull when we have a budget cut. There are material and there's wages and personnel, and that translates to the number of hours that we're able to be open. And we tend to go to the book budget because it doesn't cost anybody their jobs, and we also are able to keep doors open longer. But we're right now at that sort of teetering point with the cut that we've sustained in the fall, where any additional cuts will require us to close doors.
Plus, we have not talked about wage increases, the minimum wage requirements that we all face as far as that price going up. So even with full restoration, it's still behind. Yeah, where we were because we're factoring in those inflationary factors that are part of it. And just to reinforce the point, because it's so important for people to understand this, that our basic core are based on the great librarians and staff that we have in place, and the materials we provide, and now also the programs. I mean, when we take a look probably at all of our census data, you will see significant increases in our program services because people rely on what we do day, evening, weekend. And I always tell one just quick story. When I went out to our Peninsula Library on a Saturday a couple of months ago, and I was shocked at the number of people, not that I just saw there, but who were there for our adult learning services, and folks who are the new migrants and just immigrants overall who are here and have been basically housed out in the Rockaways, and they're coming to Peninsula. I mean, it's just those types of services that the money from the city helps us provide the core basic foundation for people's livelihood. And that's what people, I think, don't understand a lot, that we're not fat at all. We're lean and providing key services. And then the other piece, just to pick up on the point, if I may, is that when the city calls us, we respond. We respond just like that. And there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it, whether it was around the variants and the changing variants, whether it's the inoculations, or whatever the case may be, IDNYC, whether my always true story to talk about how we responded was one hot 4th of July, and the city said, we need cooling centers open. And we turned around just like that and opened up our cooling centers. And again, going back to Flushing, without any real prior notification, we had 3,000 people who came through our door that 4th of July who got cooling services as a result of the city calling us. It's just who we are as a library system. We're there to serve that need.
Can I just say that those are life-changing efforts and life-saving efforts. And I also want to shout out to you, Councilman, for your leadership, ongoing leadership on this subject and for us. I'll add one more piece that we've all talked about and we'll have more of a chance to talk about in our March budget hearing. When we see these budget cuts, in addition to closing hours and material, we have less expendable monies for capital emergency supplies, so that when the air conditioning or heat goes out, we have to close. Sure. And we are currently facing an unprecedented cut in the ongoing long-term investments in our capital. If we don't have those funds, it isn't just a matter of providing great and inspiring spaces, which we need to. It's opening the spaces even that we have renovated to date and are eager to open.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Just one more question. I think it was a perfect segue from both you presidents, but I know the $20.3 million restoration, is definitely an ask, and I know that you're working on what the overall ask is of the council and pushing for refunding the libraries. But with wage increases and whatnot, what's a better idea in terms of what the council should be pushing for in terms of a complete restoration and the additional balance and making sure that our libraries are providing to all of our communities and the programs that you're speaking about today?
I would just say we need the full restoration. And it is, it's tragic that we are, and the baseline funding from the city council, thank you very much. Yeah. And the fact that we're here trying to get back to where we were at a moment when, as you mentioned, costs have gone up on all fronts. We should be talking about increases and not just restorations to the library. We look forward to that conversation, Mr. Councilman.
The challenge that these mid-year pegs have caused is that it diverts the conversation away from what we should be talking about, which is how much our budget should increase given the cost of doing business and, frankly, the work that we could be doing if we were better funded, to a point where we're just like looking for scraps to get back to where we were.
Thank you, Madam and Mr. Presidents.
Thank you. Councilmember Hudson?
Thank you so much, and thank you all for your testimony. While we know, of course, that everyone benefits from having access to all types of books, no matter who they're written by or the specific communities they may more specifically be serving or speaking to. I am curious just from a data perspective, if you have disaggregated data in terms of your visitors regarding, race and ethnicity, LGBTQ, anything like that you might collect. I know the LGBTQ stuff is a little.
Yeah, we actually are
more.
pretty careful not to retain data about our patrons other than their names and addresses. We don't keep track of what people are reading. But I do appreciate the groundwork that you put into the question, which is we're not just about telling people they should read books that are being banned. That's
Right.
really not the point. The point is really that people have the freedom to read whatever they want to read.
Absolutely.
Let me just add, as Linda noted, we may be the last institution standing that defends people's privacy, and that means we are careful to not have information which we would otherwise like to have.
Yeah.
The simple fact is, we are the institutions that the folks most needing of help in the poorest neighborhoods of New York rely on more than any, and they often don't have any alternatives. So those numbers speak for themselves. We're sorry, sort of, that we don't have more aggregated data, though we keep track of, sort of totals so that we can make sure that we're targeting those that need it more.
I just want to add one thing. We are, in addition to being the most democratic institution in our society, probably the best trusted one as well. And that is because people understand that we do respect their privacy. It's why people who are coming into this country make their first stop, the library, to get whatever kind of information they need, whether it's something as sophisticated as an ID NYC card or just learning about where certain resources are in the city.
I was at the opening of Central this morning, and stop. And they get on my case. And the connection of our librarians to our customers is truly amazing. They know the folks from the community, the connection of the need and why they're there or what may have happened in their lives last week. And that connection of our community with the library is just tremendous. So I totally agree with Tony and Linda as far as the data and disaggregating it. It's the connection to the lives of the individuals, and that's who our folks represent as far as having that ability to understand that need.
Absolutely. And I very much appreciate your answers. We want you all to remain the most democratic and trusted institutions. Sometimes for us as legislators, it's helpful to have some specifics, but I get it. And if anyone doesn't have it, I'm glad it's you all. Can you just tell us about the people who staff the anti-banning initiatives? I know you said you all use private funding for the book banning programs or anti-book banning programs, but I'm just curious to know about staff specifically and where they may fall in terms of being able to keep them in the face of budget cuts.
Thank you for that question. A lot of them on my team are here if they would like to stand. Come on, guys.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. I know Amy's here, Virginia, Nick. Many of these folks
Brooklyn's
are...
in the house.
Brooklyn is in the house.
Brooklyn is in the house.
Many of them work in our outreach department, some of them in our collections departments, on our podcast. It's an all hands on deck effort, and it's something that kind of got layered on top of everything else we were already doing.
I'll just add to that, yes, it all depends on our amazing colleagues. Many of mine are here. Siva, who leads our teen effort.
Yours can stand too.
Giselle. And they are, for instance, the folks we depend upon for judging. They are the experts. They are unbiased and they are committed, and they are, for instance, the judges for our contests for the essay writing and so much more. Let me just be clear. We are under grave threat in terms of budgets. We have always resisted layoffs. We will continue to resist layoffs. It is the last thing we want to see because we know how essential these colleagues are. They are the ones doing the real work. We have to ensure that they have enough funding and bandwidth to do this increasing work.
I just want to add, I just lost my train of thought, but
I can just mention that I know you also had librarians acknowledged as Library Journal's 2023 Librarians of the Year.
exactly. But what I was going to say about the librarians who are doing this work, they are, in fact, the experts. They are the people who are deciding what books to buy for our collections.
Right.
It is not up to legislators or school administrators or, Moms for Liberty or whatever, I mean, the people who stood here in this room are the people who have gone to school and who have dedicated their lives to making sure that their communities are getting the books that they would like to read and deserve to read. And that's who we should be paying attention to.
And knowing the communities that they're a part of, and so bringing that diversity to the table as far as the types of books and materials that they order and have available for the community.
Before I get to my very last question, did you want your Queens folks to stand up?
Of course. But see, I always get poked over here, so if our Queens folks can stand, who are also... And thank you, council member. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. We're, spreading love is the Brooklyn way, after all.
Love.
My
One
last
love.
question is how could the city council better support your work?
We'll be sure to be calling on you as this budget unfolds. This is the very beginning. It's a long haul, I think especially difficult this year, and we have appreciated all of your support over past cycles, and I'm sure that this one will be as arduous as ever.
I want to reflect back to what the chair asked us around, are people aware about banning throughout basic society? There's a word that we use internally that I think a lot of people don't have a clear understanding about, and that's baselining. I think baselining is so key as far as the discussion and the debate moving forward, because we, all of us are tired of going through this up and down, back and forth battle all the time, and then the erosion of the dollar. So when Linda talked about, we should not even be talking about restoration, we should be talking beyond that. And how we baseline your money, how we baseline the administration's money that benefit us, and then also, as Tony indicated, and I think we'll be talking about it more in March, the capital and what it actually means. When we talk about getting into the weeds of the discussion, we're talking about getting into the weeds of the capital budget and how it impacts your money, how it impacts the administration, the executive side of the government's money as far as what we're doing. And people don't have a clear understanding of what capital actually means to benefit the communities, and having great institutions and having visionary institutions and having buildings that stand up to the test of time. And that, to me, is an important part of the discussion as well.
Look, we know there have been challenges. There will continue to be challenges. Hopefully, we're seeing some relief in those challenges. We know that the administration is working hard. We are partnering with them. We have partnered with them on the Teen Center and so much more. You all have been essential partners in the funding, in the baselining. This kind of event, which has drawn a great deal of publicity already nationally, just this morning's testimony, is also an essential part of getting the message out.
Thank you all. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Hanif?
Thank you. This has been a very hopeful conversation for our democracy. Thank you, Chair Rivera. In a time of political divisiveness, I really urge that we air today's hearing widely. I appreciate your commitment to Books Unbanned, the Freedom to Read Advocacy Institute, and against book bans broadly. And I want to extend my love to librarians who make our city better every day. Thank you to every library worker in our city. Libraries are so, so important for our democracy. At this moment, Palestinian authors and books are grappling with a heightened wave of censorship and threats, like Hannah Moshabek, who published Homeland, My Father Dreams of Homeland. And in particular, December last year, the New York Public Library made some headlines about an arrangement of books that included books about Native Americans and Palestinians. What steps have you taken to ensure that New Yorkers have access to these books? And how did the library respond to that issue in particular? And what conversations are happening now?
We are committed to providing books across the spectrum, to ensuring that the folks who want to learn more and need to learn more about what's happening in the Middle East have every opportunity to do so from every perspective. We will not allow Islamophobia or anti-Palestinian efforts or anti-Semitism to get in our way. It's very simple, Council Member. We protect the right of everyone to make a choice. Parents should help make the choice for their parents. We want everyone to be inclusive in that, but parents do have a role in this. Parents can say, I want to encourage particularly our youngsters what to read. We want to help make sure they have every possibility. What we cannot allow is other people's parents telling me what my kids can read or what I can read. That is fundamentally un-American.
I really appreciate hearing that and would love to hear from the other presidents what steps your libraries are taking and how the curation process takes place, particularly for these specific weeks for particular communities and particular subject areas and particular types of literature.
First, I'll say for the three of us that after October 7th, you'll notice that not one of our institutions made a statement despite some pressure to the contrary, but for the very reasons that Tony just laid out. We serve people of every community. We serve diverse communities. It's not our place to make a statement about what's happening in the Middle East or any other conflict that may be waged in our world these days. In terms of how we decide what collections to acquire, it's a complicated process, and there are people whose job, I always think this must be the best job in the library, it's their jobs to decide what books to buy. It's based on many, many components, including algorithms, but also input from branch libraries about what their communities are looking to read. It's from education experts, and as I said, people who are trained in this very field. So it's not a simple process, and we buy an extraordinary amount of books, even in a bad budget cycle. There are not many institutions or organizations that acquire the number of titles that the three of us, especially when you put us together, that the three of us acquire.
Just to add to that, I mean, we, like New York and Brooklyn, really don't get involved in the political aspect of life. Our goal is what we're talking about today, to make sure that books are available for individuals to choose from, and that's what we do. We have a team of people who are more expert than I am as far as who form our review committee as far as the purchasing of books, and as I think Linda just indicated, reflecting the local demographics of a community as well. And I'll use Langston Hughes as a proxy, and that's part of the discussion. And when Langston Hughes first started, the community was predominantly black. Now a heavy Hispanic population and a variety of different groups have moved into the East Elmhurst, Corona area, and you've seen the reflection of our books change as a result of the changing demographics of the community. Making sure we continue the history and the balancing of what Langston Hughes was about, but at the same time making sure that books and materials reflect the demographics of the community itself. And we do that throughout all different types of groups, making sure those types of books and materials are available for people to choose from. And it has not been an issue at QPL, and I imagine as well as my colleagues.
I would just add one thing, which is in addition to diversity of thought, we also are working hard with world language collections to make sure that we're serving populations not only on whatever platform they're most comfortable, but also in whatever language that they're
Great
most
point.
comfortable.
That's an excellent point, because we're seeing new languages come through our door every day, and how we then have to make sure the material reflects the new groups of individuals who are moving into the most dynamic, diverse city in the world, and making sure our material and books reflect that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I just want to add the way that you all have responded to New Yorkers, families that are seeking asylum. I've seen it in my own local libraries, an entire wall of sections for ethnic groups from West Africa who have arrived here. It's been incredible, and we're very thankful. Councilmember Williams?
Thank you, Chair. I had a whole bunch of questions, but you answered a lot of them in your testimony, so I'm going to attempt to reframe. So I know you did your mail-a-book program where you focused on the often banned books. I know through your Black History Month programming, you also sort of focused on this. And so do you intend to continue those programs and focusing on books that are banned? And this is specifically for the Queens Public Library.
We will continue with our programs and getting the feedback from the community on how we even improve on the programs. So yes, we plan to continue the diverse programs that you're talking about and expand them. And also, I think with all of us, give the power to our local branch managers to have the programs in their libraries that the community said is a high need as well, and provide the support. But to tie it into the other part of the conversation, that may be more difficult without having full restoration of the budget. I mean, there's only but so much we can do. I mean, we're doing a lot. We will continue to do a lot, and some have the ability to raise a ton of private money to do that, which is great. But the reality is having the money from the city allows us to expand. I mean, Linda talked earlier about her rose-colored glasses. I continually wear rose-colored glasses thinking of what's possible, and unfortunately what's not possible as a result of budget cuts. I want us to do so many different things out there. It's just true. The power of library is just so important as far as the leveling of the playing field for individuals and having those services and programs available. And I don't think people understand the direct impact that budget cuts have. It's not, like I said earlier, about just complaining and, oh, we don't have enough money and all that. It's provide that opportunity. So going to your question, Council Member, our goal is to always increase and maintain the programs that we have. And those programs that don't work, then move them out of the system. But how do we improve and make sure there are more creative programs that Linda and Tony have talked about and we talked about is always our goal.
Council Member, our commitment to diversity, to inclusion, to respect, to ensuring everyone has the chance to learn and to advance themselves and their communities is not a fad of the day. It's not something we took up and will abandon. It has been our bread and butter for over a century, and we are here to ensure, with your help, with the mayor's help, that that will continue for decades and generations to come.
One of the things, Councilmember, just one quick point, I'm sorry, is that in April, we'll be having a number of our Board of Trustee members reading banned books, and they'll be going to their local library. And we invite you to join us because it just brings more attention, and our trustees have signed up to be a part of this, and so we would love to have that connection as well.
Absolutely, and I can tell from your responses how passionate you all are. I guess similar to that vein, what broader activities have you engaged in? This is specific to Queens, but anyone can feel free to answer, that include local schools, community organizations, and actually raising awareness. I think a part of this hearing is talking about the lack of awareness, especially in New York City, because we're a little bit more privileged in that way than other states, and promoting this sort of intellectual freedom that you all have been talking about, and how do you all engage with the city initiative and nationwide initiative?
So just taking a quick stab, in your district, we've had a partnership with District 29, and we've hosted a number of meetings with the parent coordinators, the superintendent of District 29, talking about a variety of reading initiatives and supporting the district and getting their feedback as well. We've hosted the parent coordinators at the Cambria Heights Library, matter of fact, and we continue to do that. And I know we were part of the announcement with the mayor and the chancellor around the new reading initiative, and looking forward to investing in that even more so. And then what Tony always and Linda love to talk about is our programs with the Department of Education as well.
We are proud and depend upon the partnership of the City Council, of you, of so many agencies in the city, of so many nonprofits. We're proud to take the lead where we can, but we know we have to work with our colleagues The My Libraries NYC program, for instance, where we are in effect the circulating library for close to half of the public libraries in New York, is essential. We've been public schools, sorry, and why we have, we've been working closely with the chancellor to protect that program, even under difficult circumstances.
Okay, and just one more question is specific to Brooklyn. I attended a program, I think maybe like a year or so ago, and I got a Books Unbanned hoodie. It's very comfortable. And so I just wanted to know a little bit more details, like what type of organizations you're partnering with, like how do people in other areas where books are being banned learn about this initiative?
The American Library Association, which you're going to hear from shortly, our various local organizations of librarians, our neighborhood organizations, the citizenry at large, all essential partners. PEN America, donors, everyone is stepping up to the plate because this is so outrageous as a threat to democracy.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't know, I knew that was happening, but I didn't know that the initiative was happening at your library. I didn't know you even had an initiative. And so I was like, well, how are people learning about this?
So it started as a nationwide press release, and that sort of began picking up steam, and that's really how the program was launched. And then since then, we've, continued to add partners. There are, in fact, other libraries that are now falling under the Books Unbanned umbrella, including San Diego, Seattle, LA County. So we're hoping to get more large urban library systems involved in hopes of having them help us shoulder the burden.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for your testimony. It's your passion for the work is truly infectious. Thank you. And we look forward to supporting whatever your plans are, short-term or long-term, and to continue the fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
We will now turn to our expert panel. For those testifying in person, please come up to the table once your name has been called. Jason Reynolds, Emily Drabinski, and Jonathan Friedman. You may begin when ready.
Thank you. So Chair Rivera, good afternoon, and distinguished council members, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Jonathan Friedman, and I serve as Director of Free Expression and Education Programs at PEN America. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that stands at the intersection of literature and human rights to protect free expression in the United States and worldwide. We view free expression as an underpinning of democracy and a cause above politics. For 3 years, we have been at the forefront of documenting an alarming attack on the freedom to read, learn, and think. We are living through a tidal wave of state laws to advance educational censorship whose spirit mirrors but also dwarfs the worst impulses of McCarthyism. This is a campaign to exert ideological control over schools, libraries, colleges, universities, even museums, institutions that anchor a free society and an informed citizenry. Among the more pernicious aspects of this movement has been its concerted focus on banning books. Our research at PEN America has documented nearly 6,000 book bans across 41 states and 247 school districts in the past 2 school years. Today, books are being pulled from shelves in some districts by the hundreds, even thousands. Mass lists circulate online of books to target. Vaguely worded state laws are turning education totally on its head, turning teachers and librarians into agents of censorship. Again and again, we see efforts to ban books with protagonists of color, books about African American history, books about LGBTQ identities, efforts to take away the very books that many students, families, and educators say they want to access, books that many say save lives. Not every book is for every kid, not every book is for every family. But the unifying principle is that a variety of choice means kids and families can determine what's relevant to them. Now, we are frequently told if books are banned in schools, people can, quote, just get them at the public library. We expect public libraries to step into any such breach, reliable, ever-present institutions of democratic civil society. But we cannot treat libraries as a fail-safe mechanism for public education on the one hand and undercut their operations with the other. In the national fight against bans, New York City's libraries have risen to the occasion, launching innovative programs to grant ready access to books for youth across the country and working to raise public awareness of this crisis. They have set the bar high, serving as a model for how public libraries can stand unflinchingly to facilitate an equitable and inclusive democracy for all. In this, our libraries mirror the values of our city. New Yorkers know that we stand for something universal and that what we decide matters. My hope is that New York will continue to be a citadel of books and learning at a time when they are so profoundly under siege elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emily Drabinsky, President of the American Library Association and constituent of Councilmember Hanif. The American Library Association was founded in 1876 with the mission that continues to guide us today, to provide leadership for the development, promotion, and improvement of library and information services and the profession of librarianship in order to enhance learning and ensure access to information for all. As librarians, we take all very seriously. All includes me, all includes you. All includes people who disagree with me, which is a handful, I'll admit, and people who are my kindred spirits, people who live in my neighborhood and people who live at the other end of the G train, and people who live in worlds that I can only imagine. This is what makes our public libraries great. The belief that public institutions and public goods belong to all of us, a belief made reality by the dedication and commitment of library workers. Two fundamental things are necessary to secure the right to read. First, the autonomy and authority of library workers must be respected. We are trained professionals grounded in commitments to intellectual freedom, equity of access, and respect for our patrons' privacy. Since 2021, ALA has documented alarming and record-setting increases in attempts to restrict access to books and programming that reflect the lives and experiences of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, as well as those about human sexuality and LGBTQ+ experience. Such efforts are antithetical to building broad collections for broad publics. This is what librarians do, and we must be protected and supported in these efforts. Second, libraries must be funded such that they can fulfill this crucial mission. Book banning is one way to limit access to the stuff of human imagination. Another is to cut public funding for public institutions in ways that eliminate evening and weekend hours, reduce the materials available to the public, prevent the basic maintenance and upkeep of public buildings, and undercut our capacity to offer a wide range of relevant programs and services to our communities. In 1953, ALA's governing council affirmed the Freedom to Read statement, developed with the American Book Publishers Council in response to the McCarthy hearings, proclaiming that the freedom to read is crucial to our democracy. Just as we did then, ALA is on the front lines of the fight for the right to read. Our Unite Against Book Bans campaign invites partners to join our organized efforts to combat attempts to restrict access. We would welcome New York City's council as our partners. Our book resumes, launched last week, put essential selection tools in the hands of librarians, educators, and parents, all of whom play a role in expanding access to reading. And last year, we reaffirmed the Freedom to Read statement, reminding all of us that, quote, there is no place in our society for efforts to coerce the taste of others or to inhibit the efforts of writers to achieve artistic expression. Conditions on who people can be as readers are conditions on who they can be as people. Such restrictions are antithetical to the American project. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you today and to do our shared work together.
Thank you very much. The ideological control over our democratic institutions, I think, is very well put in, and I hope that the council today also really underlined that, but also our respect for the autonomy of library workers. What are some of the most common tactics you see to banning books? Do you see any signs of those tactics here in New York City? I mean, and I just want to thank you for your work and for your testimony today, because you have really collected and put together these incredibly prestigious organizations that are very accessible in terms of information and data, and so we're grateful. So any of those tactics you see here in New York City?
So book banning takes place in a lot of different ways and at a lot of different levels. When we're talking usually about the kinds of book banning that we've seen spread across the country in the past 3 years, we are talking first about school boards and local activists, sometimes parents, sometimes people who are parents or not, but maybe they don't have kids in public schools, and frequently just a very vocal but relatively modest number of people who are trying to kind of extend their views on everybody else. Now, the systems surrounding schools are designed so that parents can play a role in children's education, and many schools have policies that allow people to file challenges, to say, I don't want my kid to read this book for a class, or I would prefer that the library restrict, some segment of books for my own child. Now, a lot of that happens all the time on a very micro individual level. I remember a Virginia school librarian told me in 20 years of teaching she'd had 2 parents ask for those kinds of recommendations. But then in the past 2 years, she's had hundreds of books challenged by a small number of people who clearly want to kind of remove and prohibit from the library all kinds of books that they haven't personally read. And it's quite obvious when you see the same books challenged everywhere. So is some of that kind of micro-level challenging to school books taking place in New York? I think there are some stories of that happening, but I haven't seen the kind of bending to that will that we have seen in other states happen in New York City. And at present, New York State has not seen a law the likes of which we are seeing in Florida, Iowa, moving forward today in Idaho, in West Virginia, in Tennessee, in Oklahoma. Those are the Missouri. I'm sure I'm forgetting a number. But there are many laws that have been put forward. They work in different ways, and a lot of them exert pressures on librarians to remove books. We haven't seen that in New York, but that doesn't mean we never could. And we haven't seen any of those laws yet advance federally, but that also is something that could be on the horizon. And so what we have to be alert to is this sort of multifaceted effort that isn't really just one phenomenon. It has a lot of different elements going on at once. And although none of that is directly happening today in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, let's say, the influence of this on the culture surrounding schools, school libraries, and really the entire publishing industry, on authors, it can be felt in the air in the ways that people are saying they, might not publish a story they thought of writing a certain way, might not circulate that book the same way, or librarians are sort of looking over their shoulders at the same lists of books that are being banned and wondering, maybe they shouldn't bring them into the library. So a lot of that is much harder to track. But the reports that I hear is about this basically impacting the culture of education and learning through books in libraries everywhere.
And I talk to dozens of librarians every week, dozens, and the school librarians in New York City will absolutely tell you that efforts to ban and censor materials in school libraries is a problem in New York City. And I would also add to what Jonathan said, the pervasive sense of fear is something that it's difficult to quantify, but it's very real. I am myself an out and proud New York City lesbian, and the attacks on books about lesbians are attacks on people like me. And I was just in Alaska visiting with librarians there, and some of them were literally too afraid to be seen with me. They did not want me to even enter their libraries and take a look. They're so afraid of what these forces can bring down, and we're not safe or immune from that in New York.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not at all a crisis, to 10 being extremely serious, how would you rate the book banning that is taking place across the U.S.?
I think it's absolutely a crisis, and we see it when we think of it as one prong of an attack on our public institutions and on our democracy. And perhaps the most, I was listening to the librarians talk earlier, the heads of the New York City library systems, and we are the only public building that anyone can just walk into and ask for anything. That makes us quite an open site for kind of organizing against us and our interests. And so thinking too about the relationship between that and underfunding the library, if you weaken the institution such that it can't fulfill its mission, you open it up as a target for exactly the kind of crisis we're experiencing now.
I can't stress enough that we are already living through something that is multifaceted and quite unprecedented. We have never seen so many bills in so many states all at once, trying to control education and the ideology, a kind of effort to exert ideological control in so many different ways. And it's critical that people understand that this isn't just about, a lot of times people say, well, this is just about school libraries, or maybe it's about school libraries and public libraries, but this is also about academic libraries. It's also about universities. In a lot of parts of the country right now, it's pivoting to include museums. And we have also seen laws against bookstores or online retail or online databases in libraries. So this is the entire infrastructure that is used to organize and circulate information and ideas. And in that sense, a crisis of this level attacking that in so many different ways is, it doesn't necessarily impact any of us, maybe in New York City day to day in tangible ways, but it is all around us and it is getting worse.
And I thank you for sharing your experience in Alaska. It might seem far away, but it's really not. And I would never want you to go through that again, especially not here in New York City. And so the role of these tax-funded institutions, which is really one of the things we're focusing on today. You heard the library systems, their testimony. What is your opinion of the work being done by our 3 public library systems? Can they do more? How are they doing?
Every Mother's Day, Nicole Bryan, the branch manager at the Macon branch of the Brooklyn Public Library, holds a momathon where she invites members of the community to come in and celebrate moms. She works with local vendors and local restaurants, local businesses, brings them in to pamper the moms. I attended last year, and you could get a massage, you could paint pottery. It was just extraordinary, and it was one program that Nicole holds in her branch on that one day, but she holds programs like that every day. And every library in New York City is doing something like that. My kid, I have a teenager, guess what? He doesn't want to talk to me, but I managed to rope him into coming with me to my local branch of the Brooklyn Public Library, which is the Windsor Terrace branch. And the youth services librarian helped him figure out how to put his resume together. And we left the library, and he said to me, "I'm glad I came." And those 4 words were the first 4 words of real joy and pleasure I'd heard from him in about a year. So it was pretty great. And every day, library workers across the city are producing those kinds of experiences for the public, and they are unmatched. Could those librarians do more if they were better supported, if there were more staff that made the branches feel safer, that people felt like they had a chance to take a rest during the day? I think absolutely. And the loss of Sunday services and what that has meant for people in my community is devastating.
I have spent much of the past few years speaking about libraries and educational institutions, and New York City's libraries have been vital partners to us in getting our message out and getting our research to be made aware of by a much larger public. And it is astounding that in New York City, this conversation about the state and future of our libraries would seem to hang in the balance at the same time as we are seeing them under siege all around the country. on the one hand, talking about Sunday hours and Sunday services and budget cuts feels nothing like prohibition and censorship of the kind that we're seeing all over the country, but it really is two sides of the same coin. It is fundamentally related, and it's an opportunity for New York to continue to follow the lead that the libraries have begun to really to continue to set this bar high for what a public library does, what a public library means, how it can stand up for fundamental American values in the face of this just authoritarian threat that we are seeing. And the libraries in New York don't just serve New York primarily. They also, in that sense of being a model, have worked to help support libraries in other parts of the country to stand up to some of these threats. Books Unbanned, for example, was mirrored in Seattle following Brooklyn Public Library's efforts here. And so there is a real moment right now where our libraries and where New York can continue to stand up and be a model.
And I had a question, and you've touched on it a few times, but is it appropriate for the City Council to play a role in this fight against banning books? And if so, what more do you think we could be doing? I mean, certainly the funding is instrumental, right? Less access is less access, period. But I'd love to know your thoughts on the City Council's role.
I'm grateful for this hearing. But when I travel around the country, people say, oh, you're from New York. That's not a problem in New York. And it is, in fact, a problem in New York. And I think paying attention to what's happening in our school libraries is very important and very crucial in the conversation. Every time I, talk to a school librarian, they'll tell me about another one that quit and now they haven't been replaced. And schools, my kid didn't have a library in his middle school, and did that have something to do with the fact that he's not a reader? Absolutely. So I think the City Council can take seriously the crisis of school librarians in the Department of Education here in the city. I think that's important. But making sure that the rest of the country knows that New York City is a place that values reading, that values books, and that will promote access in every way that we can. As a national leader, I'm from Boise, Idaho, and my mom watches my weather on TV, and for her to see that New York City is taking book banning as seriously as we are here today, I have a lot of gratitude for that.
I cannot second all of that enough. I guess what I would just add is the public awareness is so vital, and helping people to understand just what it is that a librarian does. Part and parcel of this effort to pass laws and intimidate librarians has been an effort to smear the work of librarians, to call them, peddlers of sexual content to young children and other vile commentary. We've seen librarians and teachers leave the profession because of the hate and harassment that is being sent their way. And there is never a bad time for all of us to care about fundamental freedoms, the freedom to read, the freedom to learn, and to stand up for professions like that of librarians. Every librarian that I have met in doing this work has told me about books they don't like, books that they shelved one time or another and really kind of wish that they weren't. And many librarians will tell you that, and then they'll tell you, but the reason that they did it is because they believed in the overarching values of the freedom to read. That is a core part of their profession, and we have to do something right now. And New York City Council, as any municipal body, can be doing more to help the public image and the public understanding of what schools and libraries are meant to do.
Well, thank you very, very much to both of you for your testimony. Appreciate you very, very much. And again, I just want to express how grateful we are for the work that you're doing, the information, the data, and really how you have ensured that you've highlighted the library's role, valuing personnel, and our New York City values, and how we add to that public image of what's important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to this panel. We will now turn to our student panel, Sophia Kachenko, Adelaide Sendleski, and Nana Adwoa Agyeman. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. We will start with Sophia, who is testifying remotely. Sophia, you may begin your testimony.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophia. I am testifying on behalf of New York Queens Public Library. I will begin shortly.
Sophia,
Sophia, you can begin.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Rivera, esteemed members of the New York City Council Library Committee, library representatives, and all whom it may concern. My name is Sofia Tkachenko. I am a current junior at the Queens High School for the Sciences, and this afternoon I'm presenting testimony that enunciates the significance of libraries in the lives of many present-day teenagers, and will also speak about how vital it is to preserve banned books and library offerings to foster a diverse environment that allows teenagers to learn more about themselves and the world around them. To begin today, I'd like to first describe my experience at the Queens Public Library and explain why the topic of diversity in books is so important to me as an ambitious junior student in high school. Growing up, QPL provided me and my family with a safe and welcoming space for exploration, learning, and personal growth. As we would visit the library and gaze at the vast myriad of novels, to me, the library served as a sanctuary where I escaped the pressures of school and discovered new and fascinating worlds through books, digital resources, and programs tailored to my ever-evolving interests. The way I believe served as the most important aspect of the collections at the Queens Public Library was the representation of books from a plethora of diverse perspectives. Specifically coming from a family who immigrated to the U.S. from the beautiful land of Ukraine, the presence of books from my home country allowed me to see myself and my multicultural diversity and identity reflected in the books and resources they encounter, inevitably sending the message that my story mattered and that I was a highly valued member of my diverse community. Moreover, the exposure to further diverse novels allowed me to develop a sense of compassion and empathy for other cultural backgrounds as I came to understand various traditions and intricacies of cultures in my community. As such, in the note of diversity, I believe that banned books, despite their controversial nature, play a crucial role in helping teens learn about themselves and the world around them. Since these books often tackle sensitive topics and address issues that are relevant to teenagers, such as identity, sexuality, mental health, and social justice, by engaging with such materials, teens are exposed to different perspectives and are encouraged to think critically about the world they live in. Moreover, banned books provide an opportunity for young adults to grapple with complex ideas and form their own opinions, which are all vital qualities to develop for their future academic and professional ambitions. Therefore, since they play an important role in the lives of teenagers by exposing them to diverse perspectives, challenging societal norms, and fostering intellectual and emotional growth, I strongly believe in the value of preserving such works for public accessibility. In closing, the Queens Public Library has played a pivotal role in my personal growth and understanding of the world through its diverse books collections. The representation of my cultural background and the exploration of banned books have not only fostered a sense of identity and empathy, but also nurtured critical thinking skills that will undoubtedly shape my future endeavors. Thank you for your time today and for allowing me to share my story.
Thank you for your testimony. You may begin.
Sorry. Good afternoon. Thank you, members of the New York City Council, for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Adelaide Zenlensky. I'm a sophomore in high school at St. Anne's in Brooklyn and a participant in the Brooklyn Public Library's Story Team program. Through Story Team, I've had the opportunity to learn how important early childhood literacy is. The foundations laid from birth to 3 years impact a child's learning for their entire life. And through Story Team, I've had the opportunity to witness firsthand how the Brooklyn Public Library's children's programs foster literacy and a love of learning. Being part of this program inspires me because I love to read. That's why I'm here today, because I love reading. I relish having the freedom to read books that take me far and wide through worlds of endless possibility, where I may wear the cloak of another's culture, religion, race, challenges, and triumphs. Sorry. At the end of every book, I am inevitably a different person, a better one. My heart is larger and my mind is sharper. I'm better equipped to confront my own fears and challenges too. And being a teenager is fraught with challenges. The feeling of being different, unworthy, or just plain uninvited is more prevalent now than ever, thanks to social media. For me, the usual teen challenges were compounded by my parents separating last year. It was the hardest year of my life. Only now, upon reflection, do I realize that reading single-handedly got me through that year. I never felt alone because I always had another world between my palms. Angie Thomas's The Hate You Give and Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale are just 2 of the 90 books that kept me company through that time, each a dependable reminder of endless possibility and human connection. To my surprise, many of the books that saved me that year have been banned. As I read through lists of hundreds of banned books, I feel mixed emotions that range from shock and dismay to outrage. But ultimately, I'm left with fear. Fear that one person or a small group has the power to deprive us all of all the knowledge and experience contained on the pages of any book. The freedom to read is under attack in this country. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Nanajwa Jemai, and I'm honored to stand before you today as a Teen Reading Ambassador with the New York Public Library. Today, I'm going to talk about the library's initiatives to bring awareness about banned books and to highlight the importance of free and unrestricted access to education. Over the past several years, there has been an increase in book bans across the U.S. in an attempt to censor certain content from schools and different establishments. This is incredibly disheartening because kids in schools are being prevented from reading books that may be important to them, and they are seeing less of themselves in their schools and libraries. But the majority of students, parents, and librarians are against book censorship, so why is it still happening? This is why I believe that banned book initiatives are important. They challenge censorship, promote intellectual freedom, and foster dialogue, among other things. The NYPL is very dedicated to increasing awareness about this growing issue through the Books for All initiative. They have invited banned book authors to participate in author discussions, created a banned book club for teens to encourage reading those books, and hosted many other programs surrounding this topic for all ages. I've had the opportunity to be involved in the Books for All initiative by co-hosting an author talk with banned book author Mark Oshiro and discussing his book, Each of Us a Desert. I was also honored to assist in the grand opening of the Teen Center at the Mott Haven Library alongside Mayor Adams. These experiences were important to me because I know having the freedom to read shouldn't be a privilege, but a right. I am originally from Ghana, and I live in a Ghanaian household. I remember reading this book called Love Radio, and one of the characters' names was Akosia. She was from Ghana like me. I don't think I have ever felt so seen in any book. I felt like a little girl again. And it was then that I realized, wow, representation in the book is very important and has a big role in the development of kids and teens like me. That's when I decided that I shouldn't wait for someone else to bring more diversity and inclusivity in books. I should be the change. I should help bring the change. From participating in story time at 2 to 3 years old to hosting story time to some of my students at 17 years old, I've witnessed firsthand the importance of the library from my different levels of involvement at the library. The library has always been a safe space for me, a welcoming place where I could go to study, to read all sorts of books, and also to meet different people who love books like I do. That's why I'm glad that the NYPL is taking such a huge stance on this. Everyone should have access to all books on multiple perspectives from people from different walks of life. It is emblematic of our commitment to inclusivity and diversity within our schools and libraries. It defends authors who bravely speak their truths, even when faced with suppression. And it affirms that every voice, every story, and every person deserves recognition and respect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you to Sophia on Zoom for your comments on personal growth and, of course, companionship. Empathy, critical thinking skills. I think we've all experienced shock and dismay and outrage and certainly fear. And I want to thank you all for being ambassadors and great youth representatives. We'll need you along the next few months in this fight, and I'm glad that you're here, and we're honored to have you. Thank you.
Thank you to this panel. We will now turn to public testimony. Our first panel will be Flame, Deborah Allman, John Hyslop, and George Olkin.
go first? Sure. You were first. Oh, okay.
Well, hello and good afternoon. My name is Flame, and in case you can't tell from my ensemble, I am a storyteller with Drag Story Hour NYC. I want to thank you for this opportunity to submit my testimony. Drag Story Hour NYC's mission is to produce storytelling and creative arts programming for children, teens, and represented by local drag artists like myself in libraries, in schools, and other community spaces in all 5 boroughs of New York City, and virtually as well. Our programs celebrate gender diversity in all forms and all differences. It helps to build empathy for kids and gives them the confidence to express themselves however they're most comfortable. Banning books at public libraries serves absolutely no purpose for progress in our world. Banning ideas and information does not ban experience, but it does create a decontextualized experience, which is harmful in building true empathy, forward movement, and supportive networks. Much of the content of books that are banned continues to circle around LGBT+ issues and identities of Black, Indigenous, and people of color. In 2023, over 1,500 books, 1,500+ books, were banned across America, with an increasing number of them in the docket for review now as we speak. As an organization, we continue to stand with our local libraries against book bannings. At Drag Story Hour NYC, we will stand firm in continuing to read and offer banned books in our programming, work with libraries in offering readings of banned books, and working with community-based organizations, local groups, and publishers to ensure access to and circulation of banned books. Drag Story Hour NYC requests that the city honor the request of the public libraries, which include allowing for libraries to serve as facilitators of free and open exchange, asserting the tradition of showcasing the stories and perspectives of marginalized communities, and restoration of all library funds. As an organization, we stand righteous with the libraries, including New York Public Library, Brooklyn Public Library, and Queens Public Library. Thank you for your time and consideration on behalf of Drag Story Hour NYC.
Good afternoon. I'm George Sarah Olkin. I'm the bookmobile driver, and I'm the president of Local 1482, representing workers at Brooklyn Public Library. Chair Rivera, committee members, thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify on behalf of my fellow library local presidents and on behalf of the nearly 3,000 library workers we represent. Banning books flies in the face of what library workers do every day. Our work strengthens democracy by building free, equal access to information about all kinds of people and ideas. The endeavor to cut off that flow of information discriminates and disenfranchises. The stakes could not be higher. This latest wave of censorship includes books about the health and well-being of children and teens, about grief and dying, about race and racism. One of the most challenged books in our libraries is Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe, an informative and wholesome graphic memoir about the artist's experience of gender from adolescence to adulthood. We have seen the tragic effects of anti-queer and anti-trans rhetoric and legislation. Just last week, we learned of the death of a non-binary teenager after persistent bullying in Oklahoma following that state's bathroom ban. Every day, library union members are fighting back. We've extended our collections, especially to the young people most in need. Today, you've heard about BPL's Books on Ban program that gives digital access to students all over the country, including in Oklahoma, where a teacher lost her job for sharing the library's QR code. That teacher is now a defiant advocate for teens across the United States as an employee at Brooklyn Public Library. Last year, the libraries celebrated 50 years of hip hop, that vital art form which New York City gave to the world, which challenges anti-Black stereotypes and champions empowerment. Make no mistake, cynical campaigns to ban books and address that address racism and inequality and about Black excellence are attempts to roll back the hard-earned rights of African Americans and Indigenous folks and other people of color. Library workers ensure our libraries are accessible to patrons across physical and virtual spaces. Our clerical staff provide welcoming services to everyone walking through our doors. Our collection development and programming staff ensure our collections and programs reflect our city's diversity. Our custodians and maintainers provide clean, comfortable, and safe spaces. Our tech staff provide technology and classes for patrons of all ages to find trustworthy information online. And our public safety teams make sure library programs are not interrupted by cynical protesters who would have us believe that someone dressed as a mermaid reading a story to kids about Coney Island's world-famous mermaid parade is anything other than a popular family event. This might feel like a problem that is elsewhere, but library funding cuts in New York City threaten our ability to fight these bans and support folks here and across the country. Cuts threaten our ability to hire the next generation of new voices who will teach all of us to dream bigger. Cuts limit the digital access we extend to vulnerable teens. Cuts to hours and collections may spare jobs, but we're still limited and understaffed. We need more resources, not just fewer cuts, because budget cuts are a form of banning too. Defunding libraries cut off the information just as surely as banning books. If we're serious about this fight for democracy, liberation, and human flourishing, we need more access to libraries and fair wages for library workers. New York is a beacon. Who we say is cool, Jay-Z, Shirley Chisholm, what we read changed the world. Some among the powers that be are afraid that young people reading books will ask tough questions and demand answers. Our library workers ensure these questions get asked and that we get the answers we deserve. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here. I heard this in your testimony, but I just wanted to ask do you believe that the library's activities can make any real difference in a nationwide fight against book banning?
Definitely. I mean, we're a model. What we do here, the folks follow. As we've already heard, people are taking up some of the programs that we've done. And I think that the same goes for wages and the rights of workers. This is what we fight for as union members. And so we believe that a fully funded library that respects all of its workers sets a model that throughout the country, library workers should be treated with that respect.
Hi, I'm Deborah Allman, president of Local 1930 New York Public Library Guild. And as a children's librarian for over 20 years in the Bronx, I've seen what this service had done to the community. I still, even though I go in the neighborhood, I still see people that reach out to me and they still remember me. And they remember what the library has done for them. And to cut these vital services, the Bronx is one of the most underserved areas, and we need these programs in the libraries and underserved areas, and they look forward to these programs. And to see 20-year-olds that still remember what the library has done for them and reach out and have jobs. We need these services and we need these restorations, because my slogan is a cut to the library's budget is a cut to you.
And to piggyback on everything that everybody has said prior to me, we are a model, the three systems are a model for our diversity of collections. The amount of material we buy and catalog and make available in foreign languages and languages other than English is impressive. And the contributions that we make to catalogs around the world on what we catalog and buy is impressive. So yeah, we are a model for the diversity. And I think libraries look to us for what we do, definitely.
And I agree. I'm very thankful to you all, and also respecting the workers and ensuring that you all feel valued. I just want to ask one last question, Flame, if you don't mind. You've heard that New York is leading the way, that we are a model, and we have to continue that. But there still are fights that happen right here in New York City, in Brooklyn and Queens and Manhattan and the Bronx and Staten Island. So can you tell us why do you do this work?
I do the work that I do because I was one of those self-aware queer children that saw absolutely no representation. And like the lovely young person from Ghana who just spoke to you said, representation matters so much. I grew up feeling absolutely so isolated, so alone, so disconnected from the rest of the world that I think absolutely no child deserves to grow up that way. And I want to be that representation that was lacking for me when I was a child. And it is so important to have the backing of everyone here, including the New York Public Library, you all for having us. It's so heartwarming for me to see that we are striving for a change. So thank you all so much for the continued support of Drag Story Hour NYC from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for helping us process so much through these, right? This is a process in and of itself, right? Joy and reading, and whether it's through our feelings of grief and that feeling of representation, it's so important. So I just want to thank you all. Thank you to this panel. We'll continue the fight alongside with you, and we're very, very grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next panel will be Lauren Comito, Christopher Leanne Johnson, and Amaya Perez.
Like this. I'm happy to begin if we're still waiting for. Right?
Well, I think the beauty about the room is that everyone can hear when they're being called, right?
Yes.
So
Quite.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
You can start whenever you like.
Great.
Sure.
So thank you so much, Chair Rivera and all the members for the opportunity to speak on this really important topic today. My name's Lauren Comito. I'm a librarian here in New York City and the executive director of Urban Librarians Unite, a 501c3 professional organization based in Brooklyn that focuses on supporting library workers in urban areas across the US. One of our main focuses at Urban Librarians Unite right now particularly is helping library workers deal with the stress and trauma of their work. From ramifications from library budget cuts to contending with workplace harassment or protests where people scream at you. The work we do that's most relevant to today's topic is our 2022 Urban Librarian Trauma Study, which I have a copy of, and our Drag Story Hour Safety Planning Guide, and our Library Worker Support Network, which will be a series of peer-led support groups around trauma in urban public library or urban library work in general. Book bans are not about the books at all. Books are just containers for the stories of humanity. They're how we share and communicate the human experience across different life experiences. The people who want to ban and limit books it's not about the paper, it's about that denying that shared humanity of the groups that they don't want you to read about. They don't think that those people's stories deserve to be heard or recorded. Because if it's not what it's about, then why do these book ban lists not have all of the Bridgerton novels? And I've read all of them like 3 times. They are absolutely the same sorts of things that are in the books that are on the ban lists. It's just that they're super white and romance novels written by a white lady. They're not about gay people. So that's fine. That kind of sex in a book in the library is fine. It's when people see something they don't understand or think is icky that they want it out of their lives and out of the lives of their neighbors. Because this is about denying the humanity of our neighbors. This is a moral panic. It's akin to the Red Scare, or when we all thought that Dungeons and Dragons was going to turn all of our kids into demon summoning Satanists. Like, my dad wouldn't let me play D&D, which is absolutely absurd. My daughter plays every Sunday. Libraries and library workers are collateral damage in this culture war. We're being targeted, sometimes personally targeted, and accused of things like child abuse or worse. And if anybody expects that this abuse will make library workers back down, they are wrong. We will not. We will organize and support each other so that we can continue to support our neighbors as they access information freely in all of our public libraries. New York City is a place where people come to find themselves and be themselves. Our values are those of acceptance and inclusion. There's more than one way to ban a book, as my friend Emily says so eloquently. If a community can't enter the library because it's closed due to budget cuts, they can't read the stories of their neighbors. The proposed cuts will have a chilling effect on the right to read, because when you don't have the staff time to take the time to really recommend a book for an individual person because you're too busy trying to make sure that all the books get shelved because we haven't been able to hire and we don't have enough staff, then that's also limiting access to the books that are on the shelves. I'm deeply grateful for the support of this committee for calling this hearing and listening to the dangers book bans pose to frontline library workers. And we look forward to working with you this spring to address the cuts and restore full access to libraries for everyone.
Thank you. Hi. Okay. My name is Amaya Perez. I am a co-chapter leader for New York for an organization called Gays Against Groomers. We are an organization of gays and others in a community who oppose the sexualization, the indoctrination, and medicalization of children under the guise of LGBTQIA+ inclusion. I'm here to discuss two books that are currently on the banned list for New York: Gender Queer and This Book is Gay. I remember someone mentioning that this is a wholesome book for children to have access to. This is an example of a picture of inside the book itself of Gender Queer. And I'm going to read a quick excerpt of This Book is Gay. And in this section, it describes how to have sex. So, a good handy is all about the wrist action. Rub the head of his cock back and forth in your hand. Try different speeds and pressures until he responds positively. As you can see, these materials are extremely sexually explicit and graphic. I've heard testimony on that this is discriminating against LGBTQ people and how it's limiting information that is overtly graphic and sexual to children, discriminating against anybody. Don't think that it's discriminating against anybody for limiting and having standards for children and protecting them against sexually explicit material. If anything, it's safeguarding children as well as protecting my community's image that is already under fire. As you saw, the material is extremely graphic and sexual in nature. Having books that show them how to give blowjobs and normalize part of gay culture as a promiscuous culture is not being mindful of teaching kids how to be mindful of their own sexual activities, but it's supporting promiscuity, which has been a lethal problem in our community. Books describing identity to the point of normalizing hating one's body and natural processes are detrimental to the mental health of teenagers, especially young girls. In a culture with a major mental health crisis, we must be careful at the material we're giving them. As a bisexual woman, I never had to read a book to discover who I was. I never needed a book to teach me how to give oral sex to a girl. It was also mentioned that everyone should have the freedom to read what they want. It's not a right or a need for a child to have free access to sexually explicit material. The rights and freedoms of kids to read whatever they want do not supersede our duty as an adult to protect them from age-inappropriate material. Parents who want their child to have access to these materials can very well buy these books or visit school library or public libraries, but putting these books on school shelves supersede the rights of the parents who want to protect their child from this material. I ask the council to consider what the content of these books are telling young adults. Consider the material I read in these books. Consider the impact it's having on both the schools, the community, and the community it's claiming to help. Thank you.
Ready? All right, what's up, everybody? My name is Christopher Leon Johnson. So I was busy at another hearing for the zoning, so I came here kind of tired, but I'm gonna say this right now, this is a big problem, and I support Gays Against Groomers. with their fight against banning the drag queens from these schools. Now, the problem I see with this stuff is you have a lot of perverts that are reading to our kids. And the thing is, the city council is allowing this to happen because you have these corrupt directors of these libraries who only care about being appointed to the Met Museum and these other cultural institutions by the governor. They are allowing the woke crap to happen inside these libraries. Now, all this stuff that you see with Drag Queen Story Hour and putting the most degenerate books inside these libraries that our taxpayer dollars pay for, it's about the woke crap. All this is about woke. It's a woke agenda that's going on with the help of the city, with the help of the mayor's office and the city council, through Daniel Drum, who used to represent the 25th district in the city council. A lot of this stuff needs to stop. You know, don't get me wrong. If you want to teach your kids to be sexualized, do it on your thing, but don't use our tax dollars to allow this to go down while we can't say anything about this. It's disgusting that the way the city council does it, and these they let all these woke people, all these woke agendas speak first, and all the real stuff gets spoken last. It's crazy. What need to happen more, we have to defund the Drag Queen Story Hour for the 2025 FY 2025 budget under Justin Brandon, aka Fester. He needs to ban Drag Queen Story Hour spending. He can easily do it because the Drag Queen Story Hour gets discretionary funding from the city council. Fester needs to ban discretionary. Fester need to ban Drag Queen Story Hour from getting funding in the city council. The city council needs a lot of support to get this cut. I know, Carlino, you're term limited. You're out of here in 2 years, like in a year and a half. So you don't really have that much power. But I hope you do the right thing because you're a mother, you have a kid, and you tell the next chair of the committee to defund the funding for FY27, FY28. But it's a lot of things that's going on, and thank God that Chiosei is no longer on that panel because Chiosei is the epitome of the agenda. He's the epitome of the woke agenda, and they got rid of him because he don't care. Only he cares about getting the next position in the mayor's office. So we have to stop the spending. We have to stop the woke crap. I suppose against rumors. I mean, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
So let me just say a couple things here. I want to thank everyone for their testimony. We are all here as elected by the people of New York City to represent interests, dreams, values, aspirations, and futures. I will say, though everyone is entitled to give their own free testimony, I will tell you that my colleagues were elected by the people, including Chiosei, including Justin Brannon, including the pioneer and advocate, Danny Drum. With that, I am grateful for the conversation that has happened today. I feel gender expression, identity, discussions on sexual expression are absolutely critical to the future of our city and the future of humanity. Our libraries, our cultural institutions and groups, and our librarians specifically are tasked with this very small responsibility of elevating humanity, and I am thankful to all of them. I do want to ask Lauren a question, if that's okay. It's just about, you work directly with librarians. We're talking about libraries today.
Yes, absolutely.
They are on the front lines of protecting books from threats of violence and angry protests. These tactics are designed to create fear around books and libraries. How can we support librarians without giving into these fear tactics?
Well, I think everyone who came before me said funding, so I'm actually not going to say funding. I'm going to say it's always good when we see you guys out there with us. When we're at an event or holding a drag story hour, and I know the council members come out to these events with us and stand with us as people scream at us that we're pedophiles. We appreciate it when you're there with us. And I appreciate every time an elected official comes and stands with us and funds these programs and then stands with us as we deal with the ramifications of making sure that we are providing services to everyone in our community, regardless of whether some people would prefer that we didn't.
And I thank you for that. Every year, I proudly fund Drag Story Hour, and I've been to their events. I think that that sort of conversation and that critical thinking, discussion, and also the joy that these events bring are absolutely critical to our survival as people. So with that, I want to thank this panel for their work. I'm looking forward to the fight for the next few months to ensure that funding is continued and for all that you bring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last panel will be Jane Tara Curry.
Microphone is tonight on. Okay.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to testify before the committee. I grew up in New York City on the Upper West Side in the 50s and 60s when it was still West Side Story. And every week I went to a Carnegie library, and the library was a very important part of my growing up. Before I retired, I spent decades working for a major publisher in New York City, and I was an executive producer of a large website for teachers and librarians. So I got to know a lot of librarians professionally. I would attend ALA every year. I have a lot of respect for librarians, and I know the work that they do. They were at the forefront in fighting back against the Patriot Act, which required librarians to turn over to the government the things that people were reading. And the ALA stood up and told libraries, public libraries throughout the country, that they should purge their lists as soon as the book was returned, that they were not going, they were required to turn it over. They said, well, we'll just get rid of those records, because they believed in privacy and they believed in the right to read whatever you want to read without repercussions. They're also important in teaching people how to research, both teens who come in and new arrivals in the United States, to research in the library and the library stacks themselves, and how to use online databases. They were really crucial in the education of our populace. And it's heartbreaking to hear about the programs that are being cut and will continue to be cut as the budgets for public libraries are cut. And so I want to mention that we want to see our Move the Money resolution reintroduced to the council to say that this country has the money to fully fund our libraries and our schools and our transit systems and our public housing. That money is there, but the federal government is spending it on the military. It's spending it to enrich weapons manufacturers. It's spending it to wage war against civilians in many parts of this world. And so I fully in support of librarians and fully in support of getting the council to reintroduce the Move the Money resolution and stand up and say to the feds, to Congress and to the president, cut the money to the Pentagon, spend it on what our people need. I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for your advocacy. Just want to make sure if there's anyone else, no other.
We have now heard from everyone who has signed up to testify. If we missed anyone who would like to testify virtually, please use the raise hand function in Zoom, and I'll call on you in the order of hands raised. Additionally, I will call those who registered to testify remotely to see if they are online at this time. Lucy Sexton and Alex Hayden. Okay, seeing no one else, I would like to note that written testimony, which will be reviewed in full by committee staff, may be submitted to the record up to 72 hours after the close of this hearing by emailing it to testimony@council.nyc.gov, and I will turn it to the chair for closing statements.
Thank you to everyone who came to testify. the dramatic rise in censorship attempts of books and library systems across the country is deeply concerning. I think today, I hope the council stressed and underlined that representation is important, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, really how we flourish as a society, as human beings. We're fighting here for cultural inclusivity and liberation of all people, and to know that LGBTQ plus content is being targeted, that literature by Black, Indigenous people of color are being disproportionately targeted for bans. We will not stand for that, and we will continue to fight to ensure that representation continues in literature, that it's absolutely critical that we protect freedom of expression. Thank you very, very much. And with that, we adjourn.